It's no longer Parker Schnabel who drives a backhoe. He was the face of Gold Rush and the youngest person to ever pull millions of dollars from the frozen ground. After getting a harsh sentence in one of the most shocking environmental cases in mine history, he is locked up. Schnabel's gold business has been put on hold, and he has been sentenced to life in jail without the chance of parole or an appeal. This is the same Parker who started a mining business with the money he saved for college and made over $13 million, 0 cents, in gold by the age of 24. He also turned mud into TV gold and made $24 million, 0 cents, in season 14 alone. But now, his $16 million, 0 cents, from this year is frozen, and his claims about Dominion Creek are being looked into. Fans have one hot question. How did the most disciplined and hardworking miner in TV history go from being a hero to being locked up? Parker Schnabel is used to being under a lot of stress. He's played the gold game since he was a kid. He had already dug up over $13 million, 0 cents, worth of gold by the time he was 24. His team made $24 million, 0 cents, just in season 14. With the price of gold going up even more in season 15, he should be very happy right now. On the other hand, he's about to face a financial disaster, a breakdown, and now something much worse. Parker made one choice that changed everything, somewhere between chasing ounces and chasing memory. The story then goes in a different direction and ends up in court. Parker had one number in mind going into this season: 10,000 ounces. That was the goal. That's more than $26 million, 0 cents, in gold right now. He worked really hard to get there, but it's a big deal. He needed a lot of work, good pay, and no delay. That's when he did something that made people look twice and then sound the bells. He spent $2,500,000, 0 cents, on two huge claims called Gold Run and Sulphur Creek. These weren't just random spots of dirt. They were historic sites that were some of the richest in the whole Klondike. In the last 100 years, they've created $1,500,000,000, 0 cents, worth of gold. They were dangerous, though, with stripped ground, unsteady ground, and unknown risks. Parker didn't think twice. Despite everything, he was ready to give it his all to become great. Parker had to move Bob, his biggest wash plant, from Ken and Stewart's claim to Sulphur Creek so that the new claims could work. The 25-mile trip was the longest one he had ever tried. His team only had 10 hours to do it. Not only is that tight, it's crazy, but they almost made it work. Broken parts were quickly fixed by mechanics, and Tyson Lee pushed the details. Finally, Bob was up and going. Things looked really good for a moment. Bob caught 290.05 ounces of gold, worth $766, 0 cents, in just 4 days. With an extra 276.01 ounces from Roxanne at Elbow Cut, Parker's team surpassed the 60-ounce mark, putting an official $16 million on the books. Right then, the risk looked like a good idea. However, time was running out behind the scenes. More problems came to light as they dug deeper at Dominion Creek and Bridgecut. Parker's main gold wash plant, Big Red, broke down after 12 years and more than $53 million, 0 cents, in gold. When the tension bars broke, the whole process stopped. Over the years, that plant had brought in 34,300 ounces. Now it was gone. Parker had no room for mistakes when only Bob and Roxanne were running. He needed everything to go well, but it didn't. There was already legal trouble going on that you didn't see on TV. Parker made deals quickly because he was in a hurry to increase his claims and get every last bit of money before winter. He bought nearby claims through a private deal that skipped steps for environmental review. At the first sign of trouble at Sulphur Creek, there were questions about permits, disturbing a protected waterway, and old fuel tanks hidden on the land. These were all questions that didn't have clear answers. You probably didn't notice the first signs, like an inspection that was late or a visit from government officials who were quiet, but there were warning signs. As Parker pushed harder, keeping the business open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and hauling thousands of yards of gravel through protected areas, those red flags turned into subpoenas. Then the big surprise came. Federal charges were brought against Parker for allegedly knowingly breaking the law about the environment in very serious ways. Dredging that is against the law, messing up nationally protected streams, and not properly getting rid of trash are all connected to that $2,500,000 0 cents land deal. When the police looked more closely, they found more missing paperwork, overrides on permits, and worst of all, fake inspection reports signed by freelancers who were supposedly working for Parker. The show stopped being about ounces all of a sudden and became about proof. To get to his 10,000-ounce goal, prosecutors said Parker knew he had to go beyond what was allowed. They said he took shortcuts, ignored warnings, and put the environment and public safety at risk. In court, the numbers were very bad. 68 violations were recorded, more than $3,100,000 0 cents worth of changes were made to the site without permission. The dirt around the equipment was affected, and over 8 gallons of hydraulic fluid were missing. Parker's defense team tried to put on the brakes. They said that everything was wrong and that workers had messed up. They also said that the missing permits were just due to delays in paperwork and that no one was trying to break the law. Things got messy when the emails were shown in court, though. In an early season thread, Parker was pushing for non-stop production and telling his team not to worry about agency meddling. Not only did that message make people look twice, it kept coming up, and each time it did, the courtroom became quieter. The case then moved. Someone who used to work on the crew but quit in the middle of the season came forward and said Parker knew exactly what he was doing and had been told several times about the missing paperwork and possible violations, but he still did it. Suddenly, there wasn't an argument about who was to blame. There was a full-on spotlight on a leader who was under a lot of pressure and was doing everything possible to reach that 10,000-ounce goal. The results were terrible. It was like a pile of pay dirt, environmental crimes, site damage, and so on. Inspection reports that were not true and careless digging on government land. It wasn't just one mistake, it was a trend. This is the kind of trend that prosecutors called willful disregard for the law. And when blockage was added, things went from being very bad to being so bad that it would end my career. The court didn't hold back. It said Parker's acts caused the most damage to the environment, which led to sentencing rules that shocked everyone who watched. But here's the catch. Some news stories called it a scandal, but that term didn't really explain what happened. No one spoke the word prison in public. There was no big photo or walk of shame on TV. Parker instead quietly and carefully faded away from the public eye. There were rumors. Some said he was talking about making amends. Others said he was being held for safety reasons. No one had an answer, though, and the silence said it all. Parker Schnabel was the star of 8 spin-offs on Discovery Channel, including Gold Rush Parker's Trail, which made $24 million, 0 cents in season 14 alone. He started digging when he was a youth and had found more than $13 million, 0 cents worth of gold by the time he was 24. Now there is nothing, not even a word. The strange part? Parker wasn't the showy type. He was never a star in his own life. He didn't have any fancy cars or houses. He even said he slept on a friend's couch in LA when he was at the top of his game. His money wasn't wasted on flashy things. Instead, he used the money to make memories. Trips with his dad, shooting weekends with his friends, tickets to the World Series, and trips to Vegas. It was never about the cash. It had to do with loyalty and knowledge. That was how he thought from the start. In Alaska's wilds, his great-grandfather made a life for himself. In 1937, his grandmother joined him. His dad still gets up at 4:30 every day to go to work. Parker grew up with people who never gave up, who worked through pain, and who never gave up no matter how hard things got. That's what made him who he was, and it hurt so much to see him fall. He worked with his grandfather all summer and ate dinner with him every night, listening to stories that were passed down from generation to generation. He says that image, the one he wishes he had written down, was more important to him than any gold bar. Parker has always known that money goes away. Legacy was what was important. This history is now in danger. It was meant to be his big break in season 15 when he weighed 10,000 ounces and beat all the other wrestlers. Instead, people are calling this season cursed. It was all against him. His tools broke down, he had trouble with permits, and he was repeatedly threatened with court action. Parker tried to stay on task and work faster, harder, and better, but it wasn't enough. Something broke when the stress got too much. There is no way to know what will happen next. The $16 million 0 cents he made this season is being looked at by lawyers. The claims have been put on hold. The group is spread out. Some are keeping quiet, while others are trying to keep things together. Things feel different without Parker at the heart, though. Parker bet the most on Dominion Creek than on any other thing. He bought the land instead of just renting it like before. That meant there were no monthly fees or royalties to pay. It also meant that he was the only one who could lose. That check he wrote? $15 million, 0 cents. Right away. One payment. No money back. And that was just the beginning. Because the gold at Dominion wasn't just lying there. It was buried more than 40 feet down. It would take a lot of money to get there. More money for tools, gas, work, and time. It looked like a smart move based on the numbers. Dominion has about 80,000 ounces of gold at the current price of about $2, 0 cents an ounce. That's $160 million. 0 cents just sitting there. Parker thought of it as more than just a mine. He saw a future. He'd get there if he could pull 10 0 ounces a year for 6 seasons. That was the point. Those were the plans. There was a catch, though. He had water rights and permits that were only good for 6 years more. After that, there were no promises. Everything in the ground would be lost if the license wasn't renewed by the government. Parker always does this, so he put everything on the line. A lot of dirt was moved by his crew. 25 million bank yards over the life of the claim. That's more than 4 million yards a season, and when you move it, it gets bigger, so it's more like 30 million yards. That much work is not only tiring, it's depressing. Things break, workers get tired, and plans get pushed back. Everyone feels the stress. It doesn't just affect one person. Everyone felt it, from Tyson Lee to Mitch Blaschke and everyone else. Since this wasn't a lease, they were pushed every week. There were no safety nets. Every weight cost money. Parker would lose $1 for every ounce they couldn't get back. Parker couldn't fail. Not after that check, not with that deadline, and not when the whole operation depended on him staying ahead of schedule. 10,000 ounces a year, no matter what. Let's go back in time a bit. Parker didn't get where he is by being careful. There was no doubt about it when he first came to the public's attention in 2010 on Gold Rush, Alaska. Parker worked on ground plan and team while other miners bought toys and trucks. He had made $13 million, 0 cents in gold by the time he was 24. He won $24 million, 0 cents by season 14, and the show followed him to the Klondike, Oregon, Colorado, and even Guyana. He worked hard, made plans, and most of all, fought. But something changed in season 15. Dominion changed the game, but so did the stress. Parker said that the thing that scared him the most wasn't the cost, but losing his crew, the people who had been with him from the beginning. He'd rather lose them than lose money. He decided to grow big instead of shrink, turn, or bail because of this. He bought more land, grew his business, and even made a deal with Metallic Minerals to mine a 12-kilometer stretch of Australia Creek without anyone else being able to do it. That deal alone required a minimum yearly payment of $1 million, 0 cents, plus royalties for every ounce that was taken out. He was already in charge of Dominion, but now he also had a whole new spot under the control of Little Flake Mining. That's how quickly the scale grew, which is why the crew's ability to adapt was so important. Parker said it himself. He didn't need people who couldn't handle stress around him. People were kicked out if they couldn't keep up. Not an excuse. There are no second chances. The bar was higher than ever because there was a long-term prize of $200 million, 0 cents at stake. Things didn't stay easy, though, because mistakes became less likely as the job got bigger. It added up for every broken wash plant, every delay caused by bad weather, and every ounce of extra that wasn't met. That's where the stress began to seep into relationships. That season, Parker didn't see Rick Ness very often. They just barely ran into each other. Parker only saw Rick in real life twice all summer. They had a big talk in front of the camera about a tough situation Rick was going through. Besides that, though, they ran in different ways. The same goes for Tony Beets. A long time ago, Tony and I argued about everything, including permits, land, and profits. They stayed away this time, though, just a few friendly cups of coffee in between sets. Parker didn't have to pay Tony anything anymore. He had the rights to the land and wasn't sending out income checks. That meant fewer fights, but also less getting along. And being cut off cost something. There wasn't a lot of help from outside when the stress of Dominion started to rise. Parker was stuck, his head down, and tried hard to keep up. He was still keeping his official promises, though. He closed a big deal with Metallic and kept working on a 400-hole drill program. In 2022, the Yukon government gave him the Robert E. Leckie Award for Environmental Stewardship, which was just 2 years before his business was sued. In the world of mining, things can change very quickly. One season you might be getting awards, and the next you might be being looked into. Parker was the same during the day as he was at work, quiet, mobile, and rooted. Neither did he live in a house, nor do he party in a private jet. People let him stay with them, 1 week in Los Angeles, the next in Mexico, and sometimes in the Bahamas. He rides kiteboards, snowmobiles, and snowbikes when they don't break down, all winter long. He's not flashy. He was born to move and push. Maybe that's part of the problem. While everyone else was wondering how a 20-something could make $13 million, 0 cents by age 24, Parker was putting it back into new investments, taking risks, and doubling down on new ground. Not in a high-rise boardroom, but 40 feet below at Dominion Creek, where one bad call could ruin the whole season. Parker is thought to be worth about $8 million, 0 cents by 2024. Some people said it was closer to $10 million, 0 cents. Most people didn't expect that from a guy who has been the star of a popular Discovery Channel series for over 10 years. He doesn't have any watches that cost that much. He doesn't keep rare cars. Most stories say he doesn't even own a house, besides the small one in Haines, Alaska, which is on private land next to a peaceful lake. That's not very Hollywood. It's 2,000 square feet, was built in 2015, and has a metal roof and a wood frame. What shocks you more about it? Sometime it was said that he got a $950,000 0 cents home. Parker flatly denied it. He said he was homeless and would rather sleep on friends' beds. That wouldn't make sense to most people, but Parker believes it. This is the same person who bet all of his college money on himself. Back when most teens were picking out college rooms, he was picking out rock shapes and getting permits. The $17 million 0 cents bet on Dominion Creek wasn't his first. It was just the biggest, riskiest, and most well-known. It wasn't easy to find gold there. It was 40 feet deep in frozen ground. To make it work, he'd have to move 30 million bank yards of dirt over 6 years. That's more than 5 million yards a year, nonstop on both the tools and the people who run them. Dominion was not a small mine. It was a monster that loved gold, and Parker was the only one who was ready to control it. He didn't slow down even when the price of gold hit all-time highs. He used everything to his advantage, hired more people and added more tools. He agreed to dig Australia Creek in exchange for royalties from metallic minerals. He paid taxes up front and promised to work for $1 million 0 cents a year. He wasn't just digging for gold. He was making a gold kingdom. The work didn't end in Yukon either. He went to Guyana, Papua New Guinea, Alaska, Australia, and Brazil, among other places. All the way from the Klondike to the bush, from the mountains to the rainforests. Parker didn't pack up for the winter like other teams did. He was filming Parker's trail halfway around the world, digging for gold where few would try, managing details in languages he didn't know, and putting up with bugs, mudslides, altitude sickness, and anything else that stood in his way of another payoff. He got sick once at 16,000 feet in the Andes. It was so high that he passed out, but he kept going, and the camera kept rolling the whole time. That $2.50 a show pay quickly added up with Gold Rush, Parker's Trails, streaming rights, merchandise deals, and advertising. Some news sources say that he makes more than $4 million 0 cents a year from mining, TV earnings, and licenses. He and his team make between $10,000 0 cents and $25 0 cents per show. It's a machine that makes money. But there's a catch. Parker wasn't really after the money, not even with all the millions, shows, and people watching from all over the mining world. He wanted to win and live up to the standards set by his grandpa. He also wanted to protect his crew and show that someone from a small town in Alaska could compete in and win the toughest business in the world. That's why this moment is stronger than anyone thought it would be. That's because this is Parker Schnabel, the kid who grew up in mud, the guy who never gave up, and the man who built a business with a shovel and a group of staunch supporters. Seeing it all stop, even if it's just for a short time, shocks everyone. Fans, investors, miners, and everyone else. His $16 million 0 cents from this season has been stopped. His claims at Dominion are being looked at by lawyers. His income sites are quiet, and it's not clear what will happen in the future. The big problem that no one wants to talk about is still being shown on Discovery in season 15 shows. It's not being said, but everyone feels it.